I'm Steven. That's Erock. We're from Just Got Played, and we are gaming through time.
Still.
So what does that mean, gaming through time? So we are going through board games from the Big Bang, the beginning of time, through to 2021. And we are talking about our favorite games that were published originally that year and the highest rated game on the website BoardGameGeek that is published that year. So we've done a series of these videos. They're all linked below if you've missed any of the previous ones. So go check those out. But in this video, we're covering 2005 to 2009. So we're finally in the current millennium.
I concur. We've made it.
We've made it.
We survived Y2K and everything.
Well, we went back in time and fixed it and time travel. And I don't know. Yes, there's a story in there somewhere. Right. Yes.
For a game.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, we're going to start with 2005. And I will give you the honor of starting us off.
Okay, excellent. So welcome back. I'm glad to see you all again. I just want to let you know I'm probably going to line up a lot with the Geek this round. I feel like the games that I've chosen are legitimately some of my favorite games, and there's a reason they're ranked that high on the Geek. So let's start it off with a former number one. For 2005, my choice is Twilight Struggle. I absolutely love Twilight Struggle. It was number one for a number of years. Just to give you the brief what's going on in this game. So we've talked a few times in this series before about the card-driven system. This is kind of the pinnacle, the ultimate of the card-driven system here. It's based upon the Cold War, U.S. versus USSR. The map is the entire globe, and it's all of these events. The deck is cut into three: early war, mid-war, late war. But it's all unique events and everything that happened during the course of 1945 or whatever it was, all the way through 1989 or whatever it was. But the point is, it encompasses the whole Cold War, and it's the United States against Russia. And it's more complicated than that because it's not a war game. You're not throwing out troops. You're not getting in these battles. It's really about the events that happened and the influence that you're able to put on the map. And without getting too deep into the weeds on this, there are scoring cards that go in there. And when somebody draws a scoring card, they have to play it that round at some point. So that puts a lot of tension in because you know these things are coming up. But if you're not the one holding it, you're not sure. And, this is kind of a game of balancing all the time, the whole world. So even if I'm not holding, say, the Europe scoring card, I might have a feeling that you are because you're going to start pushing Europe. And then I just got to start pushing back a little bit to maintain that balance or keep my advantage or any of those things. And this happens on a global scale. So you might be like, I'll put a little bit in Germany. And I'm like, oh, he's in Germany. I got to put a little bit in Germany. Then you're like, all right, I'm going to put some into Israel. Now I'm worried about Israel. Is the Middle East going to score this round? I don't know. Then you're over going, and let me put a little bit of influence in Cuba. Now I'm like, oh my God, is Cuba going to, what's going on with all this? So this is a total, just complicated, big, massive game, the way it plays. It plays out over the course. If they say 3 hours, I'd say you're lucky to get it in 3 hours. I'd say that's two people who really know what they're doing. There's a lot of different things you can do in this game. Like I said, it's based around the influence and the cards. And on the cards are basically neutral actions, American actions, or Soviet actions. You play what you draw. So if I'm America and draw Soviet actions, I have to play them. The trick is if I draw my own actions, I can use the points on them to do things on the board or play it for the action. And if I don't play it for the action, it goes right back into kind of the deck to get reshuffled again. And if I do use the action, it's out of the game. But if I draw your cards, I have to use it for the influence points, and the event happens anyway. So it's really tight. It's hard to explain how suspenseful, how tight, and how nervous this game is from the very first turn. It's absolutely one of my favorite games. My one criticism of it really is not really about the game itself. Even when this game was number one on the Geek, I had a problem with that. I felt like it's too complicated and two player to be the best game in the world. it's one of my favorite games, but I was like, number one shouldn't be that. The number one should be something that like anybody can sit down and play, you know? So that's kind of my gripe against the game, but it's not really its fault. It's like it got too popular. so I got a little grudge against it kind of a thing, you know? So anyway, Twilight Struggle, it's fantastic. If you got the patience and have any interest at all in the Cold War, this game's fantastic.
So we've mentioned this card system before, right? I think it was originally from We the People, and then it was in Hannibal, Rome versus Carthage, which was one of our, top-rated BGG games one year. We talked about that. But this is far and away the most successful implementation of that, or most popular anyway. And, as you mentioned, it was number one for several years on the Geek. It is not number one anymore, but it is still BoardGameGeek's number one game from 2005.
Of course.
Twilight Struggle.
I'm sure it's still in the top 10 on the Geek. I would be surprised if it wasn't. Really.
I have never played it except I played the digital implementation on my computer against my computer. And maybe something is lost in translation when you're playing against a computer, but I did not really enjoy it that much, I have to say.
Yeah. And you got to play it a couple of times. I mean, you can play it once and be like, wow, that was really cool. I learned some stuff about the Cold War. I remember all that stuff. But it takes a few times to really start to dive into the depths of it. And it's got some really tricky things in it. Like, you could accidentally lose the game on your own turn, kind of a thing. So, like, one time I played with a guy at a convention and I was kind of teaching him, and like 12 different times during the game, I'm like, don't do that. If you do that, I'm going to blow up the world on your turn and I win. And but he actually won the game after these like 12 of me telling him, don't do that. You're going to let me blow up the world on your turn and I win the game, kind of the things. But, there's all these little intricacies in there. It's fairly complex, but if you got the stomach for it, it's great.
Yeah. Very popular. All right. So my pick for 2005 is different and is a little strange because my pick is Railways of the World. It's not strange that I would pick that. It's just strange for me because in general, I do not like pick up and deliver games. This game has a lot more going on than pick up and deliver, but that is how you score, basically in this game, right? You pick up cubes and you move them along your rail and you deliver them somewhere. And that's how your income track moves up. But, I like the decisions in this game. I like that, when you want to build track, you've got to spend money. And if you spend money, if you take bonds, I guess they are, you can't ever pay those back. Those are just like negative points, right? So you can't just make money and make up for that. You're just saying, well, I'm permanently giving up some points in order to get this leg up to do this thing because it's going to pay off in the long term. So I like that extra bit of calculation. I like when the board is set up randomly. Obviously, it's a map, so you've got the cities are in the same places, but what goods, what cubes, and demand, et cetera, that, how it's all laid out is sort of random. So people will look at the board and be like, ooh, that's an important part. I need to get in there. I'm going to bid up a bunch of money to get high in turn order to go in there, and somebody's going to fight me for that too. And I'm going to sneak over here to, I don't know, Jacksonville or something. I'm going to go build in the Midwest while you guys fight over the Northeast or something, right? I don't know. I played the Eastern. The base game, at least my collection of it, came with the Eastern U.S. and Mexico. Mexico is for 2 to 3 players. So I almost always play the Eastern U.S. I also have the Europe map, which I haven't played as much, but I like. There's the event cards out that you might want to, rush to get those. And then building the track or even blocking somebody out of a city sort of by taking this certain amount of connection points that there are. There's a lot of different things that you could do, but and I loved the Railroad Tycoon series of video games when I was growing up, so there's just this whole, I'm going to build a railroad, but not like a full blown 18xx economic simulation. This is like lightweight. I'm going to build a railroad. And this is, I think, essentially a re-implementation of the older Steam or Age of Steam or something. Yeah,
I was going to say, this is in the same lineage of that whole Age of Steam, like that whole family of games that has all kinds of brothers and sisters and weird cousins and everything else going on.
I think there may have actually been a Railroad Tycoon branded version of this game at one point too, So, but anyway, the current print copy you could get is Railways of the World, and that's what I have. And that's my number one for 2005.
Trains are fun.
Trains are fun.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, let's move on to 2006, and I have to say...
Well, hold on. I didn't get my confirmation. Tell me. Oh, you did tell me.
Oh, yeah.
Twilight Struggle was...
Twilight Struggle, yeah.
Validation.
So, indeed, validated. So, moving on to 2006, I have to say that 2006 was not a strong year for me. I looked in there, and there were some games that I think I would like. For instance, I probably would like Imperial a whole lot because I own and like Imperial 2030. But I've never played Imperial, so I can't pick that. I do like On the Underground. That's a decent game that came out this year. A lot of the top-rated games from this year, I personally don't like. So I've got an obscure pick from 2006, but we'll get to that. I'll let you go ahead and tell me what you've got.
Sure. Once again, I'm probably going to line up with the geek, and my choice is Through the Ages. I've only actually played Through the Ages once, but I've played Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization or whatever, a whole ton of times. I absolutely love this game. I have for a long time, since the first time I played it. To sum it up, it's Civilization without a map. So there's a lot of things that are kind of abstracted into this game, but I feel like it still captures the whole feeling of a Civilization game without having to crawl across a map and worry about that kind of stuff. The central mechanism of this is a river of cards. This river of cards is constantly moving, and on your turn, you can spend some of your actions to buy cards, and then you play the cards to become different things like mines or farms or philosophy huts or whatever, and all this different. And so you just build civilization. There's wonders. You have a military track, which is basically, again, just an abstraction of some numbers on cards to represent your military strength. There's all kinds of things that you can do in it. It's a very robust game. You have leaders. You can only have one leader per era. So if Genghis Khan is my leader, that's my leader this era. So, and that gives me huge bonuses in certain areas, very specific bonuses in a very specific way, depending upon the leader, because there's so many different choices. I think choice is one of the things that really makes this game shine. Like I said, the endless river of cards, always moving, and you can have all these things to choose from and just shape your civilization however you want. It does play long. If you're interested at all, I'd say do the digital version before sitting down to try to play it. At least the computer will help manage a lot of the, what do you call them, the cubes.
Corruption.
Yeah. There's a lot of little things going on here, but overall, I think it's fantastic. And I would play it anytime. Anytime that I can talk people into sitting for 6 hours to play a game.
So, as you mentioned, this was a really highly rated game on BoardGameGeek. It's been steadily getting knocked down because A New Story of Civilization has rocketed up to its former lofty perch. It is, however, still BoardGameGeek's highest rated game from 2006. I have only
the adulation.
No, because I'm going to disagree with you here. Because I have only played the digital implementation. But this game, and this is a heavy game, right? So this is very heavy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of pieces. Even in the digital implementation, I find this game fiddly. I cannot imagine actually having to manually manage all of those cubes and all that other stuff on the tabletop version of this game. Having played the digital version, I don't see why anybody plays something that's so fiddly and also, I mean, it's cool, right? Because like you said, it's sort of a different spin on Civilization because you don't have a map. There is military, but you're not going to win the game by going full military. Right. Probably. I mean, you could lose. You could lose by not doing enough military, right? So that there is a middle ground you have to be in. But
Plus, it's not really like that. Like in like a traditional game like this, you're warring on a map, and it matters, And in this, you just kind of have to keep pace with everybody. Like whatever everybody's military numbers are, you just kind of build yours up to the same pace. That way, you can basically just kind of defend yourself against the aggressions that go on. But you don't have to worry about he just rolled a bunch of sixes and killed off half my army. It doesn't work like that. It's all abstracted out.
But I wouldn't want to play this on the table. And in the digital implementation, I'd rather just spend a few hours playing a Civilization video game than playing the app of this. So
that's an interesting point. However, I'd say compared to the Civilization video game, this is much shorter because I can play Civ, like Civ 6. I can play that for a week and a half.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. I would rather spend a few hours in the Civ video game, even though I'm not going to finish it, than finish a game of this. But, anyway, it is a solid pick. It's just too fiddly for me, I guess.
I can't argue. It is a little bit fiddly, but it's one of those things like when you're in love, you kind of like embrace that as part of the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I get it. Sure. Well, you could criticize my pick for 2006, except you've probably never heard of it. It is called Soccer Tactics World.
You're right. I have never heard of it.
So this is a game that I do not recommend for most people. You have to be a big fan of soccer, and you have to have a kid who wants to play a soccer board game with you. But I've had so much fun playing this game with my son. And in fact, Lloyd's going to put up some pictures here on the screen of it here in a second. And you're going to see that, it comes with red and blue pieces. But, I live in Orlando. Our local team is Orlando City. Like, I got some custom purple pieces to make an Orlando City team, So you could, I think there's a yellow and green pieces you could buy, that were made for the game that don't come with it. But anyway, it's really sort of a simple game. You have all the players out on the field, and you roll a die and decide how far you're going to kick the ball, and you can kick that ball. If you can kick it to one of your players because of the number that you rolled, then you could go again. So you get 2 opportunities. Otherwise, you have to kick it into space, and then you roll for one of your players to try to run into space and get the ball. And then the defender rolls to try to move over and get into your space, and then you roll to see who gets control of the ball. And so it's just, it's a lot of dice luck, but it does teach kids a little bit about soccer rules. I mean, offsides, spacing on the pitch, which isn't a rule, but is something you need to do. So there's some knowledge there, and otherwise it's just fun. Goal, let's go to goal.
Right.
I've played some heavy sort of soccer management style games,
more of a simulation.
Yeah, and that's not something I could play with my my kid. But this is and when I was a kid, I played Subutio, or however you pronounce that, where you're flicking the soccer players around on the board with the ball and stuff. So there's plenty of other soccer games out there, but this one I think is my favorite soccer board game. Go figure.
Okay.
Soccer.
I don't think I've ever played a soccer board game. I've played some foosball.
Yeah, foosball is fun, man. Yeah, can I put that on the list? Probably from before 2000.
That's right. It's I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, so I mentioned that's sort of obscure. It wasn't in my top 100 games of all time when I did those videos recently. But however, I think every game on my list from here on out through to the end, I'll say an asterisk, and I don't want to spoil it, is in my top 100. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you can get a sneak preview of what's coming up if you just watch that video.
Yeah.
Well, set of videos.
4 hours of me babbling about games. So, all right. So that is 2006. So next up, we have 2007. And you think you're going to cross over with BoardGameGeek again, huh?
I do, yes. I mean, quite frankly, I feel like these games on this list of mine are so good, I have to cross over with the Geek. This was, quite frankly, a very easy list for me to make because, like I said at the top, these are some of my favorite games. And 2007 is one of my favorite games, and that's Race for the Galaxy. Race is fantastic. I absolutely love it. I have probably played more Race than any other game in the world except possibly poker. And one of the reasons is because you can play it on Board Game Arena. I have 400 games on Board Game Arena. It is so amazingly fast on that system, especially a 2-player game. Out of the 500 games that I've played of this, probably 490 of them have been 2-player games because it's just so fast. And on Board Game Arena, a game takes 8 or 10 minutes. And you learn this game as you play it. You learn the strategies and the intricacies, and to just be able to rip off like 6 or 7 of these in an hour, it really accelerates that learning curve. And then before you know it, you've got 150 games under your belt and you're deep into it. You know it. You know this game. This is one of those games, unless you've played this a bunch, I will beat you. I don't care what the card draws are. I know how to win this game. This is my bread and butter. This is in my wheelhouse. This is my game. I love Race for the Galaxy.
So, Race for the Galaxy, excellent game. You did not cross over with BoardGameGeek.
Then they are wrong.
But you did cross over with me, Race for the Galaxy. And
I'll take it.
Yeah, and I love, I really like multi-use cards. I like how the cards in this game are the currency, right? So if you're going to build a development or you're going to settle a planet, you have to discard some cards in your hand. And that's great for a few reasons. One, because it's those difficult decisions like, I want to build all of these. How am I going to spend any of these to build something? But also, there's always that moment where you're like, you draw something and you're like, well, this is garbage, but I don't care. I need it. I'll spend it to build something.
I got to spend it to build something anyway.
Yeah,
yes.
So I love that about Race for the Galaxy. I also like the race part. Somebody will be racing to fill out their tableau. Somebody else will be racing to, run out the victory points or at least produce and consume enough points that they have more points than you when you fill out your tableau or something, right? So, I like that race. The symbology is cryptic and awful. The military.
One of the reasons I highly recommend playing online for a little while is just start to understand, because you can just hover over a card on Board Game Arena. It tells you what it does. That's nice because, if you're trying to buy this game at your FLGS and bring it home and teach people, it's going to be a little hard because of the symbology.
Yeah, and the difference between settle and military, which are the iconography for those are very similar, but how you actually put them into your tableau is very different. So that's, that causes issues with new players. I will say that I have found, the new Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, which borrows a lot from this game, is a lot simpler to teach. And so I like the simplicity of that, even though it's clearly got roots here. So,
but I think a lot of that is just the text on the cards and the easier symbology. Just as a, for instance, I don't want to get ahead of myself because I'm not choosing that later anyway, spoiler alert, but Roll for the Galaxy is basically the same thing, except you use dice, but that is so much easier to teach because it says everything with it. Like when you look at a card, it tells you what it does. When you look at a tile, it tells you what it does. You don't have to refer to this big menu of icons and go, oh my God, what's this do kind of a thing. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, Roll for the Galaxy is a great game, but like I said, I picked Race for the Galaxy as my 2007 top game, but these days, I find myself going, why don't I just pull out Ares Expedition instead? And so, that's going to be an interesting thing going forward with me. If I sort of stop playing Race, is it going to be one of my top games? Well, it's going to have to come down, right? So, anyway. But for now, on its lofty and deserved perch, Race for the Galaxy. So, do you have a guess? Do you have a guess who knocked this out of 2000?
For sure thought this was Race. For sure.
Well, this is a game that was originally called Brass. But it is
Brass Lancashire.
Brass Lancashire.
Sure. Lancashire. Lancashire?
Yes. Now it is called Brass Lancashire. At the time, it was just Brass because there was only one Brass. And have you played?
Yeah, actually, I played a lot of this, but I never actually played this till Birmingham came out, and then I played both of them. I don't want to get too deep into this whole double meta review of Brass Lancashire and Brass Birmingham, but I like Birmingham just a touch more, but there's no way to play it on my phone. So I ended up playing a ton of Brass Lancashire on my phone. I think they're both fantastic games. Really, Brass Birmingham's in my top 10. I think last time I did one of those lists, it was number 3 or number 4. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The interaction on the board is just phenomenal. The headspace, everything, the way everything interconnects and works together, the way you work with and against your opponents at the same time. And quite frankly, Lancashire's the same. There's just a couple of minor differences. I feel that Lancashire kind of puts you in a corner every rare once in a while, and you don't have a lot of options, where I don't think Birmingham does that.
Yeah.
So it's like the difference between like a 9.5 and a 9.4 to me, really.
Well, Brass Birmingham, and it's Birmingham because it's Birmingham, England, not Birmingham, Alabama.
It's Birmingham, right? Yes. Lancashire and Birmingham.
Brass Birmingham is definitely the higher rated of the two games. And I guess for those who don't know, you're deciding on your turn, what am I going to do? Am I going to put out rail routes or canal routes? Am I going to develop industry? Am I going to sell goods? Right. So there's a very sort of tight, complex economic engine behind this. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very tight. And it's kind of one of those things where you read the rules or somebody teaches you and you go, what? That doesn't even make any sense. And then two hours later, you're like, that's just genius. And what I mostly mean is everything that you do requires a card. So you have this whole hand of cards, right? And everything that you do, you have to play a card. But only one of the actions does it actually matter which card you play. So it's kind of weird. But then once you play a little bit, you realize that makes it even harder, because I really have to make tough decisions when playing the cards, because I'm getting rid of options to play that one thing where it really matters. It is extremely crunchy, both in the head, on the board, against and with the opponents. Because if I put out coal, you can use my coal. If you can get to it, you use it. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I wanted you to do that so that I could flip it and I get credit for the building. Or maybe I wanted to use that coal to build my own railroads. Like, there's so many just tight, tough decisions in this game. I love it.
Yeah. Very popular around our local gaming community and apparently everywhere, because it is.
Yes.
Number
especially
one.
in Birmingham and Lancashire.
All right. So moving on to 2008. So for 2008, I have a party game as my number one game.
It's been a little while since we've had a party game on our list here.
Yeah, and this, I don't know, could be my last party game. No, it's not. I just glanced over my list. It is not. But anyway, this one is Dixit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good choice.
So Dixit is a game in which you have a handful of cards with obscure art on them. And what you're going to do is you're going to describe a card, and your description of the card can't be overly obvious, because what's going to happen is everybody else is also going to, based on your description, submit a card into a pile. And we also throw in a random card, which is something Rando Cardrissian we stole from Cards Against Humanity. I don't think that's even a Dixit variant, but we do that. You throw in some other random card. And anyway, and let people vote on the cards, on who they think which card they think is the card that was being described by the original person, right? And so as the person who put down the card, if nobody gets your card because you just were way off base, then you don't get any points. If everybody gets your card because you were too obvious, you don't get any points.
You don't get any points.
Which
right?
The ideal situation is you want one person to pick up on whatever you were alluding to. And to be honest, I put this in the party game category because the game is most fun when you aren't trying to win it. And what I mean is, if you have a card and you can make some obscure reference that only your wife is going to get, and you know that, then you can game this game, right, and get maximum points every turn. But it's more fun if you try to sort of play the game the way it's intended to be played, rather than trying to play for points. And that's
just
why I call this
fun with the art on the cards.
Yeah, just have fun.
And just imagination coming up with things. I really enjoy Dixit a lot.
Yeah, and I love when it's I'm not the person making up the clue, and they give a clue, and I'm looking at my cards and going, what am I going to play?
Yes.
Like, ooh, this
what
is
looks like
obscure.
That?
Yeah.
This one looks like that.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. I mean, that's fun. And it's also fun when I forget which card was mine. I'm like, what did I put out there? I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah. So anyway, it's very simple. Anybody can play this. And if everybody's in sort of the right spirit, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, 2008 for me is Dixit. What have you got for us?
2008. Well, I've got, again, one of my favorite games, and that is Dominion. Quite frankly, Dominion has not fallen, or has fallen a little bit. There was a time for sure when Dominion was in our top 5 or top 10. It's not quite there anymore. It's not because really I lost any kind of respect for Dominion. It's just because there's so many games that came out since Dominion, man. But if you really want a deck builder, this is the deck builder. Yes, there's a theme, but not really. It's really just you get an action, you get a buy, and that is all. And the cards that you buy give you more actions and buys and stuff. So, I mean, this is it. This is the game. You build a deck that then that builds this engine to let you do more things and buy more things to get the victory points. The real challenge of this game is just knowing when do I switch to victory points. That's the key to this game, because if you boil it all down, it's really just a deck builder straight up to get stuff to get the victory points. And I love it. It's fantastic.
I love that the victory points gum up your deck. Right. That is what agree. Separates this from many other deck builders to be, right? I mean,
and a lot of times it's what separates the winner from the loser, because a lot of times somebody starts a little too early trying to get those victory points. Now, when they're drawing their hand, they only have 3 playable cards because 2 of them are victory points. And they slow down at the wrong time and you pick it up. So I'm picking up what you're throwing down, Steve. Yes.
Yeah. Dominion is a great game. And I personally only have Dominion plus Intrigue. But there's like 13 or 15 or 17 expansions for this game. And, some of them add a lot of different stuff too. But because we've got so many games and we don't get it to the table as much as, diehard Dominion people, it's just Dominion plus Intrigue is enough to last us, forever. Although I do have the fun black market promo card. That's a fun one.
Right. Yeah. I always like Prosperity also. That was the one that added the next level of money.
It was
coins, everything built to that. So it's now you're spending ridiculous amounts of money every turn. So that was always fun too. But yes, Dominion.
Yeah. Well, so neither one of us crossed over 2008 with BoardGameGeek.
See, this is another one I thought for sure would have been Dominion. So
well, and I was just making fun of the English pronunciation of Lancashire and Birmingham, and now I'm going to pronounce something in French, even though I know nothing about how to pronounce French, because this is the harbor. Le Havre.
Le Havre, yes.
Le Havre. So,
or as people in the gaming say, Le Havre. So.
Yeah. And this game has had a little bit of a resurgence, I think. Been moving up in the rankings recently, as some people sort of rediscover it. Have you played it?
No, actually, I have not. This is one of the biggest glaring holes in my experience and collection. I hope to at some point. It just hasn't come up yet, really.
All right. Well, here we go. I haven't played it either. Dice Tower East, you and I are going to get together. We're going to play this.
All right, deal.
Yeah. All right. So
people that I talk to that have played this like this game a lot. You know what I'm saying? If you've played Le Havre, I haven't heard many people say it's okay. People that have played are like, it's fantastic. So it's on my list. We'll play.
So what I think is the interesting decision in this game, just having seen some things about the gameplay is, so you have this, boat or something in the harbor and it's moving along. And when you move, you get to decide, am I going to take all of the things on offer, like whatever it is, all the wood or, from one of the sections, or am I going to activate one of these buildings? And so apparently that is sort of the hard choice. Do I want to get this stuff? Do I want to activate one of these buildings? Or I think you can also build a building. Knowing when to grab a resource versus when to do a thing, and the doing a thing, activating a building, you have, and I don't know if it's just one worker. I think everybody has maybe one worker. You activate that building, but also now you have blocked that building until you activate another building. You can't activate that same building again and just monopolize the space, right? But when you go to activate another building, now you move your marker.
Sitting out there.
Yeah, it's just sitting there and it's blocking it. So it's got that worker placement blocking thing. It's got, should I get resources or spend resources this turn? And so again, neither one of us have played it, but I think that's what looks and sounds interesting about this game. So, and we both love worker placement, so
yeah, absolutely.
I think we would get a kick out of this game, and
I'm sure Tiff will play with us.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that long either. I'm not sure, maybe a couple hours, So
yeah, That sounds about right. From what I've heard, again, never played it, but from what I've heard,
Yeah. All right. So I definitely can't argue with that because I've heard nothing but good stuff about Le Havre in 2008. And also I can't argue about it too much because I'm just going to jump right out here and say that for 2009, the Board Game Geek highest rated game is Dominion Intrigue, which is higher rated than Dominion.
Interesting.
This is typically on Board Game Geek, expansions don't get rated, but this isn't an expansion. This is a standalone game that you can use as an expansion.
A lot of them are. Prosperity was like that too. You could just play out of the Prosperity set. So
this is the highest rated Dominion thing, I think, on Board Game Geek. I bought Dominion Intrigue because I liked that it added the fifth and sixth player. Now you had enough stuff to do 5 and 6 players, and also there's a little bit more interaction with the cards.
I was going to say there's a little bit more interaction. It's a little bit meaner in a little bit.
Yeah, this is what brings in the curse. I don't think there's curse cards in the base set, right?
Yeah, there is. There's like a witch and a curse.
Is there?
But I think this really ramps it up a bit.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot more interaction here, and I just recently played. It has suggested in the rulebook. It has suggested sets for when you have both, and I played one of those recently that had a lot of interaction, and it was fun. It was, we'd never played that collection of sets before, and I had a great time playing it. So everything you said about Dominion is true for Dominion Intrigue in 2009.
I agree with myself. I just philosophically disagree with the expansion being higher rated than the base game, but I guess I'll challenge Board Game Geek to a brawl in an alley. So come on, bring it, Geek. Bring it, Geek.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, so what is your pick for 2009?
For 2009, this is probably the simplest game, let's say 5, 10, in 10 years, and probably the simplest game till the end of this list, and which means the end of time. But for me, it's a 2-player card game called Jaipur. I think Jaipur is fantastic. This is something I thought was really fun, but it has really grown on me over time. I think, just very briefly, there's all these different products like rubies and diamonds and silks and all kinds of different stuff. And there's also camels. And you shuffle these cards up, and like everybody gets a starting hand, and then you put 5 in a display. And the basic rules are you can take 1 card, you can trade for as many as you want to, or you take all the camels. And basically that, and the point that you can't have more than 7 cards in your hand, and that's 90% of the rule set right there. The rest of it's just turning in things for sets. There's some really interesting decisions in this game, which the first couple of times you play and you're like, okay, that was fun. And then you start to see these other levels in this game. It's really interesting because, all right, so the camels don't count in your hand. When you take camels, they go off to the side. All right. So remember, you can only have 7 cards in your hand. So camels don't count, but you can use the camels to take things out of the board, out of the display to put in your hand. Okay. So I can go from 3 cards in my hand to 7 by taking 4 cards out of the middle and trading 4 camels in there. Right. Now I have 7 cards in my hand. Well, the problem with that is I don't have any way to take any more cards at this point. So if somehow there's a really good run of cards on the table, I can't take them because I'm already at 7. Or I have to switch out the things I've got going on, which might be worth it. Like it might be 4 golds sitting up there, and I'll trade 4 silks or whatever in for the 4 golds. But what if I'm holding that? What if I'm holding rubies? Like I can't downgrade from rubies to take the middle. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of this kind of thing that goes on in your head when you're playing against somebody. And I think this game is fantastic when you play against the same person a lot. Because then you start getting into each other's heads about what's the timing of this? If I play this now, is she going to grab it now or is she going to go play her own thing? And then I have time to go back and grab that. I just think it's really juicy. Like I said, it's something that really has grown on me over time. It went from a fun card game that we play to, I love Jaipur. That's a cool game. Have you played?
Yes. My wife and I played on the Dice Tower Cruise a couple times. I was pretty interested in it because the concept of trading in a two-player game does not make a lot of conceptual sense, right? Because trades are, they're not always necessarily zero sum. You both can sort of improve positions through trading in different ways, but there's usually a clear winner, right? Even if it's a small amount, right? And usually you can calculate that, right? So why would you ever trade in a two-player game? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But, this game made it work, and it was fun. We had fun playing it. I don't play a lot of two-player games, so I don't have a lot of two-player games to judge it against. But, I would play it again, sure.
Absolutely. This is by far one of my favorite simple two-player games. Like, Twilight Struggle is a two-player game, but that is a completely different beast inside another beast that ate another beast compared to this,
Well, you know what? Interestingly enough, I also picked a simple card game for 2009, probably even simpler than Jaipur.
Really?
Any guess as to what that is?
The Resistance?
The Resistance. You would not play this. You would not play this at two players.
Oh, that's true.
This is a high player count game.
That would be funny, though.
Yeah.
No, you're the traitor. I know you're the traitor.
So this game, this may have been my first real dive into social deduction. There may have been some games that I played before that had social deduction components. Even poker has a little bit of social deduction. Maybe,
a little bit, yeah.
Right. So depending on how you want to define it, but this game is purely social deduction, and somebody turned that into a game, and it's really simple. And it plays at a high player count, which is good for my group. But basically, you're assigned a role, and you are either a spy or a resistance member. And there are 5 missions to go on, and each time that there's a mission, there's somebody who is designated as the leader. That leader has to pick a certain number of people to go with them. And those people get to submit cards saying whether they have sabotaged the mission or not. And if one, in almost every case, I think if just one sabotage is required to sabotage the mission, there might be one mission in the middle where 2 sabotage are required.
Depending on player count, I think you're right.
If you are one of the people who wants the mission to succeed, of course you're never going to sabotage it. But if you're one of the people who would benefit from it being sabotaged, you still might not sabotage it, right? Especially that first mission where there might just be 3 of you on the mission.
Or depending on player count, 2 of you. And if you sabotage it,
I've never played that low of player
you can really argue with the other person, but there's one person who definitely knows you're the traitor. Definitely.
Yeah. And there are event cards that let people also get other external information. This game I've been doing my top, games, whatever, sort of privately, just a list since like 2014, I guess. And I went back and I looked, and this was in my top 5, and then it started slipping and slipping and slipping. It's still in my top 50 now, but this was one of my favorite games, and it slipped down. And that is not anything to do with the game, right? That is just a little bit that it was played out, like we played it so much. A little bit there are new social deduction games that have different spins on it that add some extra layers that I think are fun. But also because it's hard to play social deduction games with my group because I am one of the saboteurs. I am a resistance member. No matter what the cards actually say,
like
right?
It's always you.
Yeah, it's always me. I can't convince people it's not me; it is me. So at some point, as soon as people sort of latch onto that meta, that you can never tell with Steve if Steve is one of the bad guys, so assume he's one of the bad guys. And then once that meta comes into play, the game stops being as fun. Right?
I agree.
So anyway, but. I guess I'm good at the game to my detriment, but still my top game from 2009, even though it's sliding down my top 100 a little bit.
I agree with everything that you said. There was a time when my group, which at that time was 5 or 6 people, played this every week, whether it was before we started or in between games or to finish out the night.
It's very fast.
Yeah. Absolutely played this all the time, and I loved it. I still love it. For all the things that Steve said, it's just not played that much anymore. It's still on my shelf. I don't think I've touched it in years, but I still love the Resistance.
There are a lot of expansions to it. There's a medieval or fantasy medieval version called Avalon. Yeah. Originally, Avalon came out and it had Merlin, as an extra roll, but then they added Merlin back to the regular, and so now there's nothing different about them except the theme. I highly recommend getting a set that has the Merlin card. It makes the game a lot more fun. And there's a lot of more convoluted rolls you can get as add-ons too. There's a lot of expansions.
I've heard about all of that. I have never ever played anything except base Resistance.
Oh, you've never played with Merlin?
Nope. I think it's fantastic. We had so much fun playing this.
Yeah, so. I agree that just the base game is excellent, but I think Merlin is an easy and worthy addition. And Merlin is just the one who they're on the side of the Resistance, but know who the spies are. So. Oh,
right, like your werewolf style,
yeah, like werewolf style, right. And you can't be obvious about it because if they out you at the end, you lose. So but anyway, yeah, great stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, that is 2005 through 2009.
Yeah, that was 5 years already. It didn't feel like 5 years.
Yeah, we just sailed through that. A lot of crossover. So,
that's
helped.
True. Yeah.
And I looking ahead, there's probably going to be some more crossover. I know you're going to cross over some with BoardGameGeek and me. I can feel it.
I don't know. I feel like that was my sweet spot. I feel like I'm surprised I didn't cross over with the Geek more. Because, every time you said one, I'm like, what? Seriously? Geek's wrong? Because I just feel like those were the ones. Like, these were the most popular of my choices in the history of everything. So we'll see. I feel like I trail off after this one.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So if you have thoughts on games from 2005 to 2009, maybe you disagree. You think the Geek is better. You think we all missed. Let us know in the comments below, or come on over to our Discord. So the link to our Discord is in the description below. Come over there and chat with us. But if you're enjoying this series, give us a thumbs up. That does always help us out. And subscribe to the channel, and you won't miss the next video when it comes out. But anyway, until the next time, where we start with 2010, I'm Steven. That's Erock, and we've been gaming through time.
Indeed. Every time I say it. Yes.
Every time. See you next time. All right. Thanks, everybody.